I want you to look up what house in your natal chart is in the sign of Leo. And I ask that because not only do we have this new moon where the sun and moon are conjunct in Leo, but we also have Mercury newly entering its retrograde also in the sign of Leo. So there's a lot of action going on in a specific area of your life right now, and I'm excited to dive into the meaning of them as a whole for us as a collective, as well as what it means uniquely for you. Hello, friends. It's your girl, Alina, and on this channel, we talk all things alignment, not just aligning with the cosmos, but also the seasons, and most importantly, with your intuition. And in this video, we'll be diving into not only the nature of this new moon in the fixed fire sign of Leo, but also the nature of Mercury retrograde in Leo, along with the top transits happening around the time of this lunation, really informing the core themes that we will likely experience around this time. And I'm excited to mention that I brought back all signs readings. I'm combining my videos here, these long form videos, with my short form. So I'm excited for you to give me some feedback on if you like it. Now, new moons only ever occur when there is a conjunction between the sun and moon in the same zodiac sign. And we see that here with the sun and moon coming together in Leo, as we are currently in Leo season. Now, new moons mark the beginning of a new lunar cycle, and they can mark the beginning of a new cycle for us, not only over the next 28 days, but also over the next 6 months, as it will be 6 months until we see a full moon in the sign of Leo, signifying a culmination point from things that are started around this time. New moons in general are seen as this beautiful time for pausing to rest and reflect on the previous lunar cycle, the previous 6 months, and looking to the future based off of the things we have learned and intentions set if we feel comfortable doing so. Now, Leo is a fixed fire sign. It's ruled by the sun. And so I actually saw a funny meme a few years ago that's like, man, Leos think that the world revolves around them. And then it literally shows the sun and how all the planets revolve around the sun, including the world, the earth. And I thought that was kind of funny. So shout out to my Leo friends. Happy Leo season to you. And I feel like this is a great opportunity to remind you that a lot of the tropes or the sort of negative associations with Leo being self-centered and all these things, I highly suggest for you guys to look into things like evolutionary astrology and the concept that just as we as humans evolve and grow, you can see this physically in our, visually, but also personality-wise and maturity-wise. In that same way, we can evolve through our zodiac signs. And a lot of the sort of tropes and memes and jokes about every zodiac sign and their issues are usually tied to the more immature side, the less evolved side of that zodiac sign. And I want to remind you that Leo is represented by the lion for a reason. It signifies courage. It signifies leadership. It signifies standing on your business, because not only are fixed signs associated in sort of a negative, unevolved way of being stubborn, but in an evolved way, they're associated with commitment. Leos are some of the most fiercely protective signs of the zodiac, and that just doesn't just mean protective of their own inner child and protective of their own creativity and showing up as they are, but it also signifies being protective of the people that they love and they care about. And as we move into this new lunar cycle, this new 6-month cycle with this Leo lunation, it's really signifying this beautiful opportunity for us to intention set and reflect on how we have stood on business, how we have protected and preserved the things that we care about the most as well. And also, Leo, again, being ruled by the sun, is a great signification as well of leadership and the importance of people who are confident and how they can actually add to the collective. There are many people, for example, who feel more introverted or shy or afraid of socializing or afraid of putting themselves out there. And this speaks to the power of collaboration, because it's when those people collaborate with people with that Leo energy who are confident, and when those the people with the Leo energy that are evolved utilize that level of confidence or that ability to step into a leadership role, to show up and be seen, they can actually use that in a constructive way to actually better their community and speak for those who have a harder time speaking for themselves. So I love diving into this stuff. So that is a general gist. Another aspect of this lunation that I think is pretty relevant is that, as with all new moons, they only occur when the sun and moon form a conjunction. The sun is currently in Leo, which means that it is in its domicile. The sun is in the sign that it rules over, which makes it very happy and comfortable there. Now, with all of that context, I'm excited to get into the top transits. But before we do, I want to mention that I did a giveaway of 2026 astrology planners. As many of you know, I design astrology planners and wall calendars and stationery, and it's my passion project. It's something that's so deeply rooted in my heart and that I'm so grateful to be able to share with you guys. And I wanted your feedback on any ideas you might have for the 2026 line, any improvements, what you liked, what you didn't like about customer service and things like that for my company Auraline, which is a stationery company. And I want to share who the winners are really quick and just mention that I will be emailing you. I want to thank you for your patience. So I actually ended up, before I was going to choose, I think 2 winners, but I decided to choose 5 winners. So the 5 winners are Esther F, Sabrina P, Daniel M, Abiua O, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. And Charlie H. And all of you have been emailed. Be sure to check your email to see if you won. And I want to say thank you so much for everybody who was participating. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that this video came out a little bit late, and it is because I have been working so hard on the 2026 line. I've been working with my manufacturer, finishing up designs, figuring out how they will be fulfilled, shipped out to you guys in a timely way. I've been doing so much behind the scenes on top of also making content on TikTok. And so I thank you so much for your patience. And I want to mention that if you are interested in the 2026 line and you want to be the first to be notified when they drop, because we will be having loyalty discounts for anybody who's hardcore interested in this, then be sure to sign up down below to be notified. That'll be in the video description. Now, one of the reasons why I feel like this lunation is going to be a great fresh start, very interesting, but also one that is really signifying for a lot of us circling back to aspects of our lives that involve us holding space for our authenticity and speaking up for ourselves, but that potentially being challenged or us being maybe pushed or nudged to circle back to it in some way, coupled with this being a fresh start, is because we see that the sun, the ruler of Leo, the sun and moon will be in Leo and will be conjunct Mercury retrograde. Now, in general, as with all retrogrades, from our vantage point here on Earth, it is when a planet appears to be circling back to where it was just a few months or weeks ago, which is what a retrograde means. So it's essentially circling back to somewhere. And in that same way, it's a signification of us being invited to circle back to something in our lives. And what that thing is in our lives, or what the area of our life that we are going to be invited to potentially circle back to, is determined by what house Mercury is in your natal chart. And you can find that by seeing what house Leo is in your natal chart. I want to remind you that if you want to look this up for yourself, always look up whole sign chart. I personally am a traditional astrologer. I'm studying Hellenistic astrology, and I use the whole house system. And so that is a bit of clarity. But with your personalized reading, I will also be letting you know what house Mercury is in for you. So that's a part of this reading. But I just wanted to give you some context. So this Mercury retrograde will be happening between July 17th through August 11th, and the post-shadow period will be ending around August 27th. And like I mentioned before, there's a high likelihood of us being invited to circle back to something for us to just reflect on it a little bit more. And because this is involving Mercury, Mercury rules over information exchange, the internet, conversation, networking, socializing, and learning, and short-term travel. And this is why when there is a Mercury retrograde, oftentimes we are invited to circle back to things through the sort of retrograde mishaps of miscommunications, spell check issues, tech hiccups, all of these sort of things that you always hear about a Mercury retrograde involving. This is why, because it's rooted in us being invited to circle back to something, whether it's like, oh, I need to spell check that, or, oh, that was misinterpreted, or, oh, can you repeat what you said? I didn't fully understand that. Or, oh, this has the potential of getting hacked. Let me change all of my passwords right now. Or, oh, when I was planning my travel plans, this hiccup happened and now I need to go back and double check that. Or this is slowing down my actions. I actually, as like an aside, Chris Brennan of the Astrology Podcast, love Chris Brennan. I am a student of Chris Brennan's Hellenistic astrology course. He recently did a great video talking about Mercury retrograde and its connection to the movie Back to the Future. And it's such an encouraging story about how even if you have mishaps with Mercury retrograde, it is, one, not guaranteed that it is the worst thing in the world. Two, even if it's a hiccup or an issue or a setback of any capacity, there is oftentimes, depending on how we respond to it, it can actually lead to us coming out stronger and having a better understanding of that thing because we circled back to it. And so I just absolutely love it. Highly recommend checking that out. That's Chris Brennan, Back to the Future. You can look that up. But around the time of this Mercury retrograde, for all of us as a collective, especially in Leo, especially with US's president, his rising sign being in Leo, and, there's a lot of indications of us circling back to things as it pertains to the world, as it pertains to governments, as it pertains to people that are highly visible. Think of that Leo visibility. And us circling back to that and kind of questioning things or reassessing things in some capacity. But on a personal level, this can also manifest as potential realignment. For some of us, we might stumble upon maybe an old journal or an old idea or an older conversation that reminds us of who we truly are, or reminds us of something that on a deeper level was more authentic, or something that was closer to the core of us in some capacity. But that's really generalized. I'm going to get more specific in your personal reading. I also want to mention happy Leo season to my Leo friends. If you are a Leo or you know a Leo, I would love if you commented down below. Now, Leo season begins on the 22nd or 21st, 22nd, depending on your time zone. And Leo season is really this time of culmination in a lot of ways, because the sun is in domicile. It's in the sign that it rules over. It's happy in the sign of Leo. And so it's just all about the sun. It's all about courage, shining bright, allowing yourself to show up authentically and letting it nourish the world, okay? The sun nourishes us by shining bright, unfiltered, okay? And that is this overarching theme of Leo season and our Leos, And I feel like I personally have been incredibly inspired by the Leos that I have known in my life and Leos that I see online who show up authentically. And I don't know, that's just my perspective. So happy birthday to my Leo friends. That will be happening for about a month. Now, some other transits that I want to go over that kind of will be impacting this lunation and really adding to this story of potential fresh starts, but also this invitation as we're starting, having potential challenges to that start, having potential challenges to this area of our life of like, are you sure you want to do that while you're also growing? And I mean that because we have the sun and moon conjunct in Leo, and they will be trining with Saturn and Neptune, which are in Aries. Now, for context, trine aspects are considered relatively benefic and constructive, even when they involve a malefic or a more challenging planet like Saturn. And with Saturn and Neptune already together conjunct right now in Aries, that's already giving very much like, are you talking the talk or just walking the walk? Are you imagining what you're doing without actually creating tangible steps? That being the Saturn energy, the imagination being the Neptune energy. And with there being a trine with the sun and moon, this is indicating a pretty notable and constructive green light to really commit to your dreams. You might feel a little bit more energy or drive to actually write down and actually get clear on tangible actions in alignment with your dreams in some capacity. And this can be a really solid transit for more spiritual structure, like more structure in pair, like next to, coupled with the more spiritual aspect of things. Again, this is a great fresh start for those things. We also see that the sun and moon will be opposing Pluto in Aquarius. Now, this is where this lunation, bringing in these themes of fresh starts, of standing in our power, shining bright, stepping into our authenticity, has a potential of being challenged. And opposition is considered a less constructive, more malefic sort of transit or aspect, with Pluto, the planet of necessary breakdown in order to have breakthrough in the collective sign of Aquarius. And so this is indicating older versions of belonging or fitting in, maybe potentially challenging a fresh start for some of us. So this might look like people we already know being like, you're acting different, or like, you don't talk that way, when you're actually working on evolving in some way, or you kind of feeling uncomfortable with somebody else changing or evolving. And maybe I'm inviting you now, and this transit can invite you to pause, to reflect on, are you holding on to the past a little bit too much, or wanting things to stay the same for you that could be hindering somebody else's growth? Like, that is an overarching theme as well. And then the last transit is that we'll see that Venus in Gemini will be squaring with Mars in Virgo. Now, Venus is the planet of love and relationships. It's in the chatty sign of Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is retrograde. So there's a lot of chattiness in love and relationships, but also we're being invited to circle back to something containing that. There's a little bit of hiccups there potentially, and it's having this not very constructive, not a very supportive, potentially challenging square aspect with Mars, the planet of war, aggression, but also action and drive in Virgo. So this can manifest as potential sort of mental overload or overthinking or rumination, coming at odds with more practical pressure of actually taking action based off of those thoughts rather than letting it kind of like stir up in your mind. And so this is a great time. I feel like I just want to remind y'all, not everything needs to make sense right now. Like not everything needs to be clear cut in order for you to start. You don't need the approval and the reassurance and the love of everyone all the time in order for you to take action or to step into your power or to explore something that maybe is a little bit outside of your comfort zone. The truth is, when it comes to pursuing most things in life, we'll never fully be ready. It's about taking actions, showing up imperfectly, showing up scared. And as you're walking the path is revealed, but it's as you walk the path. And as you're doing it, you feel more comfortable and present. So that is that on that. Now, before we get into these journal prompts, I want to remind you that you can get not only this video outline written in email form, directly emailed to you for every full and new moon, but you'll also get any other videos I make. So I make TikTok versions of this. I also release meditations on occasions for these full and new moons. If you want that all together packaged in one email, sent out usually a day before the new moon or the full moon, then be sure to sign up for that. And yeah, so next up will be these journal prompts. If you have your 2025 Auraline Astrology Planner, you already know you have a dedicated new moon journaling area for the month of July for this new moon. So you can flip on over to that. And the journal questions or prompts are, what have you maybe been afraid to share or express in the past because you feared it might feel like too much? And also, where are you at with that now, past or present? Where are you being called to revisit a past creative passion or relationship or identity that once lit you up in some way, if at all? And finally, for this new lunar cycle, this new 6-month cycle, do you have any intentions that you would like to set? All right, y'all, if you made it to this point in the video, I would love if you commented 3 sun emojis or 3 lion emojis, or let me know if you have already been noticing any of these themes from this new moon, Mercury retrograde, Leo season, or any other transits popping up for you. With that said, we're going to dive into these all signs readings. As always, I always suggest that you look up your rising sign, and I usually suggest that because based off of your rising sign, it determines basically the placements and the signs of your entire chart. So the reading for your rising sign is a great overview of your entire life and the generalized sort of experiences that you might have. You can also go to your moon sign if you want to know how things might be feeling from a more emotional sense. You can go to your sun signs reading if you want to understand how things might show up for you or how you might react from a more egoic sense, from a sense of visibility, from a sense of even think of your career reputation from a broader perspective. And because I'm ending with all signs, I want to end here with my favorite quote, and that is, remember, be gentle with yourself because life is about the journey, not the destination. All right, I'm going to attach the videos from the short form platform onto here. Enjoy. So for my Aries friends, this lunation is really signifying this fresh start for you when it comes to how you hold space for your authentic self, your inner child, your creativity. What does it look like for you to show up as you are without too many filters, stepping in confidence? What does that look like for you? And with Mercury being retrograde, I have a separate video on this you can look into, unique for your sign, but there's this invitation to be a lot more intentional with the things that you start, with the aligned actions that you take around this time, and really lean into this retrograde energy and the new moon energy being all about rest and reflection when it comes to your authenticity, when it comes to the ways in which you express yourself creatively. Now, for my Taurus friends, this lunation will be happening in your 4th house of your inner circle, your home, your roots, the things that made you you as you have grown and developed over time, namely usually your family or your immediate relationships. And there's this signification of a fresh start within that realm of your life, but also of reflecting and kind of looking back at those things with a little bit more of intention. You also might have a bit of challenges here when it comes to this fresh start, a bit of a push to maybe sort of transmute something or evolve something within your closer circle in order to have this fresh start. So stay open-minded to those things. For my Gemini friends, this lunation will be happening in your third house of conversation, information exchange, socializing, and networking. So this can signify a fresh start when it comes to your relationship with socializing, your relationship with miscommunications, proper communication. You also have Mercury retrograde in the same house. You have also Pluto opposing all of these planetary parties in your third house right now that are bringing in fresh starts. So it's signifying this time where you might be invited to pause, to reflect upon the way in which you communicate. Things that you might have said in the past might circle back, inviting you to have a more intentional eye on it. But ultimately, there is a new runway for you to step forward with a fresh start in this realm of your life. Now, for my Cancer friends, this lunation will be happening in your second house of finances, of material gains, of values, self-worth, the things that make you feel worthy, the tangible results of your work, in the ways in which that you earn your living in a lot of ways. And so this is signifying for you a fresh start within that realm, but also potential invitations for you to really reflect on the way in which you have approached those aspects of your life. And there could be a potential sort of opposing sort of factor in there that might be pushing you to evolve in that space in order to have a fresh start for yourself. Now, for my Leo friends, this is all about you. This lunation is happening in your first house of the self, of the body, of personal health, of self-identity, of the ego. This is signifying for you, if you want to start anything right now, feel free to do that. Feel free to ride this lunation wave. As the light builds on the surface of the moon, so too can the intentions that you set around this time also build. But bring in a level of intentionality. Be slow and steady. Be meticulous in reflecting on your game plan, so to speak, and namely learning from the past before you take these steps forward in anything that you're ready to kind of move through or evolve in your life when it comes to your self-image. And I say that because, we have Mercury retrograde in that area as well. Now, for my Virgo friends, this lunation, this new moon will be happening in your 12th house of sabbatical, isolation, death, of endings, of loss for many of you. And this is not signifying like doom and gloom, all things negative. Oftentimes, this can signify, even if it's loss or an ending, it can be a necessary ending for growth. It can be a necessary shift or change here. And considering that not only do we have this new moon in Leo, but it's also opposing Pluto in Aquarius. It's also, and Pluto is all about transmuting and shifting things in order for something better to exist, to make room for new things. And so this can be a really, really potent time, especially around the time of a new moon, for you to reflect and circle back to your relationship with your deeper levels of psyche, your relationship with boundaries, your relationship with pausing, drawing your energy back, being in silence, and seeing what insights come through, whether or not you feel comfortable with them, and recognizing the power and holding space for these insights at this time, not shying away, but really circling back to them. Now, for my Libra friends, this lunation will be happening. For my Libra friends, this lunation will be happening in your 11th house of networks, of collaboration, of innovation. Think about the innovation that can come from bringing up an idea with like-minded friends or community and then being like, oh, you know what? I know someone who also is interested in that. Let me collaborate with you, or let me connect you with them. Or, you know what? I heard about this one book that's kind of similar. This could be helpful, and how working together can make things a lot better. And right now you're being invited to there. You will likely have experiences that can signify new shifts or new opportunities in this space for you when it comes to your community, reflecting on that right now. The moon and sun are in Leo in this house, and they're really signifying this shift for you when it comes to being able to also show up authentically in your community spaces, in your collective, and really circling back to that with Mercury also being in Leo, and being open to reflecting on if there's any sort of pushback or any sort of opposition there, and being open-minded to that, inviting you to potentially rework something in order to have a truly fresh start, truly approaching it from a different approach to have different results. Now, for my Scorpio friends, this lunation will be happening in your 10th house of public sphere, of, you know, how other people see you. Think of your reputation. Think about your outer circle. Think about your work. Think about the things that you leave behind. Again, like your legacy in a lot of ways. And with this being a Leo new moon, this is signifying a great fresh start when it comes to maybe even your career path, maybe even the way that you approach the way in which you contribute to society as well. And also whether, I feel like for some of you, you're going to be letting go of this need to have a strong self-image of like, I want everybody to think of me a certain way. But with Mercury also being in Leo in the same house, you're also going to be invited to circle back to something, bring a little bit more intentionality into the very same place that Leo is inviting fresh starts within. And even if you notice any sort of opposition here or some pushback, consider looking at that as an opportunity to transmute it, to work with something old in order to create a clear runway. That way you have a new approach in order to get new results when it comes to your career path, your public image, your outer circle, and your reputation. Now, for my Sagittarius friends, this lunation will be happening in your 9th house of travel, of long distance travel, of expansion of the mind, and of expansion of your ideals, of your worldviews. This can look like philosophical or even spiritual views. And I feel like this is an indication, or this is a signification of a new chapter for you. You might have experiences that are inviting you to stand a little bit more in your power, kind of stand more on your beliefs, stand more confidently in that space. And also remember that it's possible to be confident and to be a leader and all of those things, and also be corrected sometimes, and have your worldview expanded through being open-minded to differing ideas, and recognize that actually improves your intelligence and your self-awareness and your worldviews. Just holding space for different perspectives, whether or not you necessarily wholeheartedly believe in them, but you might have experiences that invite you to do that around this time. Now, for my Capricorn friends, this lunation will be happening in your 8th house of contracts, other people's money, other inheritance as well. This is a part of the money access for you. You're having the sun, moon, and Mercury all in this house that also involves potential loss as well. This also in traditional astrology is considered the house of death, but especially when it comes to contracts, especially when it comes to working with people in like an official contractual way, especially when it comes to your parents. These are things that can all come up around this time, and you're invited to not only produce or have a fresh start in this area of your life, but also reflect on and be intentional with any new starts that you have, be intentional with any new steps that you take, and also be open-minded to any challenges that you have within this realm, as these being invitations for you to actually transmute those challenges and actually use it as information to approach things differently in order to get different results. Now, for my Aquarius friends, this lunation will be in your 7th house of relationships, all things relationships. Think romance, think of more intimate connections. Also think of equitability and justice and retribution and balance. These are all these themes of the 7th house. And with this new moon in Leo, it's really inviting you to step up confidently and speak for yourself and advocate for yourself or others to have that equitability, to have that balance, whether it's in relationships or in other aspects of your life. But there's a higher likelihood of experiences like that coming up for you around this time, and also an opportunity for a fresh start if you bring a little bit more intentionality into the equation. You are paying attention to the fact that Mercury is also retrograde in the same house as this new moon, signifying fresh starts, and that there is an opposition with Pluto, indicating that if you do have setbacks, looking at it constructively as an indicator of potential areas where if you transmute that and you look at it constructively in a way where maybe you can change your actions, you can then have changed results as well. Now, for my Pisces friends, this lunation will be happening in your 6th house of work, labor, the energy that you give out to others, the necessary balance and routine and rituals and systems that can help you to sustain your energy when you're giving to others. Also, the way in which you receive the work from others. These are the themes that are coming up for you right now when it comes to the work, the energy that you put out into the world. And so with this being a Leo new moon, this is signifying how are you advocating for yourself, holding space for yourself, and when it comes to the work that you're putting out, when it comes to the balance, the sense of groundedness that you are working to achieve. And also, there's also going to be this mercurial spotlight because Mercury is also retrograde in your 6th house as well. So that's important to remember. Though there is this opportunity for a fresh start, there's also an opportunity for reflecting on these 6th house themes and bringing intentionality into them. And if there's any setbacks right now, recognizing that it's actually this invitation, there's a higher likelihood of it being an invitation from a constructive perspective for you to actually transmute that and approach it from a new perspective, from a new vantage point in order to get new results, especially if you feel like you've been working at something, getting the same results, really leaning into what does it look like for you to try something from a completely different perspective and lean into this new moon theme of pausing to reflect and rest and drawing your energy back to yourself to gain information from what has and hasn't been going right in the past and learn from that to pivot in some capacity.